Pro.Gnosis, a podcast with Àrmunn Rìgh.
Hello everyone, welcome to Pro.Gnosis episode 6. This time we have a special guest, JRegan. Is it JRegan, JRegan 4? What do you prefer?
JRegan's fine, or J, or just Regan.
Right, so we met over at Discord, and we've had several interesting chats, and I immediately understood that he had a lot to say and a lot to share. So welcome, Regan, and present yourself. Let us know where you come from, and also where your spiritual ideas and your views on the world and reality come from, and your spiritual path.
Yeah, no problem. I was born in Auburn Hills, Michigan. My hometown is Oxford, Michigan, which is pretty close by. I don't really see borders and nations. I see them in a very different way as it is. So to me, it's just southeast Michigan is kind of the local area I've always been around. So I graduated high school out of Oxford and eventually made my way into the college school systems, and I did community colleges. I went to Ferris State University for plastics engineering and mechanical engineering technology with minors in 7 or 8 different things like programmable logic controllers, psychology. I minored in automation systems and a handful of other things. And then I know I spoke with you before about my work while I was there. I paid my way through. I hardly took out any loans outside of borrowing money from my grandparents, who played a big part in raising me. And I tutored a lot of students in the health industry. The main programs up at Ferris State are optometry, pharmaceuticals, and nuclear medicine, amongst welding engineering and pro golf management are like the 5 big things there. And they have 300 programs. All the universities have been blowing up over the last few decades, so it was getting revamped while I was there. It's an entirely different school today. But so I really dabbled in everything. I had an engineering analytical mindset from a very young age, and I was very open to spirituality. So it was kind of a killer combination when it comes to balancing things in this world and what's going on.
Yeah, that's one of the things that actually I noticed with you, was that you were very methodical, that you like to, put things into tables and formats and like diagrams, so that you understand them better, and you can also present them in a better way. Most of the things that you would share of your own ideas, of your own observations, you usually made a graphic, right, or some sort of table to show in a more methodical way, in a more clean way, let's say, a more logical way. So you think that background was important for you in that regard? It gave you that perspective of, if I'm going to, go out there, at least I'll put it in order. Let's say I'll put it in a neat way, in an engineer kind of mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. I've I think I grew into it with both those aspects, always kind of there. Um, Probably didn't realize a lot of different things until more recent years, and I assume that I haven't realized plenty of other things. I think we all continually learn and progress, and it's all growth and development,
Yeah.
So it's been interesting. That's what it's. I've always dabbled in both worlds, and yeah, I like to use the infographics and cite books and cite media and movies and all these different things because I think writing books are great, but
Hmm.
there's hardly anybody that reads books these days. Um, Movies are great, but trying to fit a book into a movie and obviously we have what Hollywood does to movies, but then even if you were making your own production, like it doesn't always translate,
Yeah.
and it's whatever your production budget is, if you're not
Hmm.
a part of Hollywood, you're probably not going to be able to do a whole lot unless you're extremely creative and very highly intelligent and can pull all those strings, but
Right.
and uh, and I mean amongst many others, we all have mostly 9 to 5 day jobs, if not work more, work less, and a lot of us to even create content, it's a lot of time consumption. So I've always looked at compression, which is kind of a big thing in the tech world.
Yeah.
That's your
I was going to mention it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I I went to this camp. I think it was a big part. I went to a lot of different camps that were all great learning experiences, but this one was called Super Camp, and it was at Madison, Wisconsin,
Mm.
Wisconsin University. Um, we got sent there, me and my cousin, because we were bad students. Our grades were not so good one year, and so we went to this super camp, and they taught us all these various things about learning, and it was very interesting. Like they mixed physical activities with learning, sessions and only putting you in a classroom for 30 to 50 minutes because in those days, probably pretty similar today, the attention spans were short. So, they were, hey, let's go run around, do things, and then we'll come in and we'll learn off
Hmm.
text and doing lecture, and it was interactive. You had to participate. You couldn't be the quiet kid in the back corner. That they rotated and moved everybody, and it was all new learning techniques of the early 2000s. And out of that, I mean, I picked up a lot of great things, but there was this one infographic they showed, or well, two more right in a row.
Mm.
It was a pyramid that was broken into a couple sections, and it had learning retention percentage, and it was like 10% audio, 20% visual, 40% higher educated teaching, 90% actually teaching the material, and all these various categories.
Mm.
And then there was another diagram they had pulled up in that same, it was like the same session. That's why I won't forget that particular day it was like 3 weeks that we were there.
Hmm.
And it was like the second Tuesday or something. And they broke apart what your learning style is. There's people who learn more through auditory and like
Yeah.
listening to people talk. There's people who learn more through visual. There's people who learn more kinesthetically, which is hands-on.
Hmm.
So, and that's the kinesthetic learning was the thing I had never heard of at the time. And all these other programs and schools, never had heard of it, and I was like, and I knew what it was, you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
was a word, you know what it is, you know what it means, but you kind of don't, because no one's actually said anything. It's more of like a feeling.
And it's probably because you've never actually tried it before. Probably because the school system is set up for memorization, right?
Yep.
The idea is to memorize, so you listen or you read, so audio or visual, and you're supposed to memorize the content and not actually learn anything. It's just a matter of memorization. And so that's probably, I would guess, the reason why it's not used as much. The hands-on approach, let's say, the try it out, the do it, and as you do it, you learn, right? Approach.
Right. Well, and the way that I saw it was they were teaching that to, we were troubled youth, not performing well in the school system that's designed. So they have to give you a couple tools to get you back into their system to function in it in the way that, so it's like, okay, well, here's this special piece of information they only tell you about if you're a poor student, and I would guess most likely an advanced elite, the higher education schools, that people in private schools and such.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they get that learning as well. But yeah, that gave me a lot of key aspects to not only my own learning, but how other people learn. And it kind of opened up my world to, I saw the school system for the memorization and regurgitation. I saw it as that. All of the work to me was always droning. The reason my grades failed was because there wasn't a challenge anymore. I saw the system,
which is most of the cases of school.
Absolutely.
School problems. It's just that you're bored as hell, right?
Yeah.
And I've also experienced that. One of the things that I always intensely disliked during my school years was to study. And I disliked that because, again, studying was a matter of putting in memory and not really, actually knowing about something. I was always good at languages. So for me, in terms of, for example, the foreign language English or the native language Portuguese, I never really needed to study because I was learning fairly quickly. But the other subjects, and particularly maths, because in maths you either are able to decode the fundamentals or you're done. It was hell for me, and it's the reason is exactly because most of the content is really not that interesting, and it's really not something that you are going to, most of the times, of course, that you're going to actually use, that is useful in your daily life. And what happens when you try to learn something hands-on, as you were exposed to, is that you're not only learning that specific thing, but you're actually learning about even yourself, right? What you can do, how your body works, how your mind works when engaged in a challenging, a new challenging situation, right? And so I think that is exactly when I think you've touched upon a sensitive point. That is exactly the reason why the school doesn't really particularly work, at least not in the past few decades. And you can see that you can judge that for the graduates that are coming out, right? So